Hey everyone. I wanted to talk about the Tim Wise speech. Um, I found it to be very interesting, and I think he brought up a lot of valid points that I didn't really think about. I really liked the title. What does a white guy know about racism? Because he brought up very valid points about racism as a whole, and I think he did a very good job targeting how it doesn't always have to be about minority groups. Um, and I really liked how he approached it in a way that wasn't being biased towards one side or another. And he looked at it as a whole. He talked about how there's different social classes and there's different, between all different races. And, you know, just because someone's white doesn't mean that they're, not struggling. And same deal with, if someone's black or someone's, Hispanic, like, they could be just because they're that way, they could still be very wealthy and doing well for themselves. So, what especially stood out to me was when he said, he brought up President Obama, and he said um, that if he fails as a president, that will look across the boards on the race as a whole. And that was a very interesting and valid point, I thought, because I definitely agreed with him. I think that a lot of times, if you have, like now we have a black president and we had never before. So it's one of those things where now that we do, if he does fail, it'll be looked at, well, why did he fail? Is it because he's black? And I think that that's very, like, something that unfortunately is kind of true because, not that former presidents didn't, but, they've all been white. So now that we have something different, if he fails, it's one of those things where, well, it's probably because he's black and he's different. And I think that that's really, really unfortunate. But, and that happens with different things, with, sports, or, oh, well, he didn't play as well in basketball because he's white, and it's one of those things where we get judged a lot on race. Um, but I thought that that was a very good point that he brought up, and that kind of like stuck with me. And in terms of like, I also think that this would be, like the whole of his speech would be good to use, as a teacher. Just to point out the differences between, race can be against any group. It doesn't have to be against, the minorities, because he also brought up a good point that in, I'm not sure how many years he said, but that, our population will be half African American, and it's going to be split, like, basically right down the middle. And it's one of those things, too, where, like, it's time to come to terms with the fact that, we're all people, and it doesn't have to be divided by race like it is. But like I was saying, with using it as a teacher, I think it'd be very important to show children that, race could be classified in any way. You could be racial against, white people, and, say, well, most white people are better off. Why are you, poor? Or why are you, like, acting like a hillbilly or something? Or, if you see a black person, like, oh, why, you're doing well? Like, that's strange. Like, I think that it's very important, because those are stereotypes I even see now in the classroom. And even at a young age, they get that. And, they see different things. And I think it's very important to let your students know that it's something that happens a lot. And it doesn't have to be, something that does happen that often. And it's something that, does and needs to be acknowledged, but also needs to be challenged, I think. And it's something that is very important for students, to be able to see and to be able to understand, why this happens, but also move forward to changing that and accepting everyone as an equal individual. But overall, I thought that Tim Weiss did a very good job. Definitely, he had a lengthy speech, and he went into a lot of things, but what really stuck with me is how he talked about race as a whole and who it really encompasses. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope to hear more of what he has to say in the future.